Dividends, where you get paid on a regular basis by some of your favourite companies. You literally get paid for doing nothing. That is the true meaning of passive income. But what are some of the best dividend stocks? In this video, I'm going to be going over 5 of my favourites and giving you all the reasons why. And make sure you stick around to the end, where I rank them from my number 1 favourite down to my number 5. Wagwarn people, welcome back. For those of you who don't already know, my name is Benje, I'm a business owner, and here I aim to help you make more bread by sharing my own struggles, experiences and advice. Alright, boom. So if you don't already know about dividend stocks, then be sure to go out and check this video where I go in depth explaining all about them and how you can start getting invested. But there are a few terms that you will want to be familiar with before we carry on with this video. The first term is dividend aristocrats. These are companies that have increased their dividend year on year for at least 25 years. Brother, that's my whole life plus 4 years minimum. The second term is dividend kings. These are companies that have increased the dividend year on year for at least 50 years. Just to put it into perspective, yeah, that's almost as many years as my queen has been walking this earth. Don't get twisted though, she still don't look a day over 25. There are also a few other things that you'll want to look out for when investing in dividend stocks, and the first one is simply just stock performance. You want to invest in companies that have good foundations on fundamentals and have been doing well in the past and will continue doing well in the future. The next thing you want to look out for is dividend yield. A yield is just a dividend as a percentage of the share price. A company like Apple pays a dividend of 82 cents a year, which is equivalent to a yield of 0.68%. In basic terms, if you invested a bag into Apple, you get 0.68% of that back every year in dividends. Another key thing to look at is a dividend payout ratio. This is simply represented by the amount paid in dividends divided by the company's net income. So let's say that a company makes $1 million profit and is paying a dividend of 500 bags. This would mean that they have a payout ratio of 50%. The higher the payout ratio, the less being reinvested back into the company, as the majority of the money is going to shareholders like me and you. Companies with high payout ratios often find that their capacity for growth is stunted because they just don't have the capital available to invest in development. The payout ratio can be used in conjunction with other things to be able to assess whether a dividend is sustainable in the long run. So in no particular order, let's now talk about my top 5 favourite dividend stocks. The first one I'm going to talk about today is AbbVie. AbbVie are an American-based pharmaceutical company who strive to create innovative medicines that solve serious health issues in key areas like immunology, neuroscience, eye care, and gastroenterology. AbbVie pay their dividend quarterly and have seen a growth in their stock price over the last 5 years of around 80%, which is an average annual return of 16%. On top of this, they pay a dividend yield of 4.64%, which in total gives AbbVie an annual average return on investment of 20.64% over the past 5 years. AbbVie are also a dividend aristocrat, having increased their dividend year on year for over 25 years. This is a status that they will not want to lose, so it's very likely that they will continue to increase it. Their payout ratio, however, is over 175%, and so this is a cause for concern. But they have recently raised their revenue in the last year, so hopefully they managed to convert the revenue into profits and thus reduce the payout ratio. The next stock I'm going to talk about is a very well-known company, and it's PepsiCo. They own a multitude of your favourite brands like Doritos, the Starbucks to-go ranges that you see in the shops, and Tropicana, as well as all of the Pepsi ranges. Pepsi pay their dividend quarterly, and over the past 5 years the stock has seen steady growth of 39%, which is an average annual return of 7.8%. But do bear in mind that they are only just hovering around the pre-pandemic stock price levels. Add on a dividend yield of 2.93%, and over the 5 years PepsiCo has an average annual return rate of 10.73%. Another very stable dividend investment. They're also a dividend aristocrat, having increased their dividend year on year for 48 years, which also means they're only a few years away from their dividend king status, and that is something that they will definitely want to reach. PepsiCo's payout ratio currently sits at just over 75%, showing that they are comfortably able to pay the dividend and also have the scope to increase it if they wanted to. The next dividend stock I'm going to talk about today is Seagate Technology. They're an American data storage company and are the self-proclaimed leader in mass data storage solutions. I personally own 2 of their portable hard drives, and as I say in many of my videos, it's so important to invest into companies that you know and understand. Seagate pay their dividend quarterly, and over the past 5 years have seen a growth in their stock price of a very nice 260%, which equals out to an average annual return of 52%. Pair this with a dividend yield of 3.09%, and the overall annual return over the past 5 years is that of 55.09%. Just to put that into perspective, that is the equivalent of doubling your bread every 2 years. Imagine if your money was in a bank, you'd have hardly got anything for it. Seagate currently have a payout ratio of around 65%, meaning there is still room to increase the dividend at current profitability levels, but are also reinvesting money back into the company. The next stock is one that I just couldn't leave out. Some people may not be the biggest fans of it in terms of a dividend stock, but I will never take it out of my dividend portfolio, and that's Apple. We all know what Apple do, and that needs zero explanation. But I personally own hella of the products, and like I said earlier, it's so important to invest into companies that you know and understand. Apple pay their dividend quarterly, and over the past 5 years they've seen the stock price grow by an overly mad 467%. This is equivalent to 93.4% annually. They have a dividend yield of 0.65%, so in total have an average annual return over the past 5 years of 94.05%. That is the equivalent of almost doubling your money every single year for the past 5 years, and that's without even thinking about compound interest and them things there. The Apple dividend yield may not be the largest, but it is stable and there is a strong company behind the investment. Apple also have a payout ratio of 18.34%, which means that they have hella room, and I mean hella room, to increase that dividend whenever they want. Apple only started paying their dividend in 2012, but it can be seen that they're probably going to be paying it for a long time in the future and eventually becoming a dividend aristocrat and potentially even a king. But in 2017, just 5 years after the first time paying the dividend, they surpassed Exxon to pay the biggest dividend in the world. Last but not least, we've got a lot of people's favourite fast food joint, and I gotta say, it does slap after a night out, and it's McDonald's. They're an American fast food company, but that's not all. They're also a real estate company. They make a lot of their money by buying the properties that the stores are in and then renting them to the franchisees. Just like the other 4 stocks I've talked about today, McDonald's pay their dividend quarterly, and over the past 5 years they've seen growth in the stock price equivalent to that of just over 91%, which works out to be an average annual return rate of 18.2%. The dividend yield of 2.24% on top of this equates to an average annual return rate of 20.44%. McDonald's are a dividend aristocrat, having increased their dividend year on year since they first introduced it in 1976. And this also puts them only a few years away from dividend king status. McDonald's sit on a comfortable payout ratio of 73.73%, meaning they should have no problems maintaining and continue to increase the dividend up until and beyond the point that they become a dividend king. So now onto ranking them. At number 5 we've got PepsiCo. They've got a very average dividend yield, and they've seen steady growth over the past 5 years, and are always increasing the amount of companies within their portfolio. I think overall they're just a very good stable stock to have in your dividend portfolio. At number 4 we've got AbbVie. They've got a very nice above average dividend yield and have seen some very good growth over the past 5 years. However, the payout ratio is a cause for concern, so that is something to watch out for. And at number 3 we have Seagate. They've seen some very nice growth over the past 5 years of an average of just over 55%, and have a very nice and comfortable and average dividend yield of just over 3%. But they do not quite reach the levels of my number 2. Now this one might be a bit controversial, but in at number 2 we do have Apple. Now the dividend yield might be a bit low, and I understand that, but the company behind the investment is what makes it number 2. It's amazing. Apple are always at the forefront and will continue to be at the forefront for years to come, in my personal opinion. And so it's a no-brainer for having Apple in your dividend portfolio. And in at number 1 we have Mackey's, McD's, McDonald's, whatever you want to call it. They don't just do the food, they also do the real estate. They've got a very nice average return rate over the past 5 years of just over 20%, and they've got a nice dividend, a very comfortable average dividend yield of around 2.24%. The payout ratio is no cause for concern, with the ability to comfortably increase the dividend in the future. They're only a few years off that dividend king status, and they will continue to be at the forefront of the fast food market. If you've enjoyed this video and want to learn more about investing into the stock market, be sure to check out this playlist. Love to everyone who's watched this far, and we will see you again soon.